Welcome back. We have completed the first module. From now on, we will be dealing with the second module, that is correlation and regression analysis. It is one of the important tools that comes under the quantitative techniques of business. And before we go into the concept of correlation and regression analysis, let us understand the concept of variables, studying relationship between variables, and likewise. The statistical methods so far studied related to analysis of one variable only. But we may come across with situations where there is a relation between two variables. As we have discussed in the case of basic numerical skills, and we have dealt in numerous cases consisting of two variables like x variable items and y variable items. So whenever there are two variables, it is known as bivariate. Whenever there are three variables, it is known as trivariate. So usually we will be dealing with a situation where studying a relationship between two variables. For example, an economist finds that along with the increase in supply of money, there is increase in price level also. In this case, he may be interested to study the degree of relation between the two variables, namely supply of money and price level. The statistical technique that can be used to study such relationship is known as correlation analysis. So first of all, we will be dealing with the correlation part. After completing that area, we will be dealing with the regression part. So, correlation is the tendency of two or more groups or series of items to vary together directly or indirectly. It means an increase or decrease of the one is found in connection with an increase or decrease of the other. And greater the magnitude of the change in one, greater is the magnitude of change in the other. So, that is the concept of correlation. When two variables are said to be correlated, if the change in one variable results in a corresponding change in the other variable. For example, in economics, you know that there is a relationship between price and demand. When there is a change in price, correspondingly there will be a change in demand also. In such situation, there exists correlation, and correlation is used to study whether there exists relationship between variables under study. Regarding price and demand, we know that there exists relationship, but we have to know whether there is a relationship between the variables that are under study, because we will be dealing with different kinds of variables, and we have to make sure whether there exists a relationship or not. So that is the concept of correlation. Before we go into the correlation and regarding different kinds of correlation, you need to understand the concept behind the method of correlation. The word correlation usually implies cause and effect relationship, that is, mutual interdependence. For example, a change in the price is a cause for a change in demand. As I have mentioned earlier, that is, there exists causal connection between the two variables. So, what is meant by causal connection? Causal connection means cause and effect relationship. The correlation may be different types. We will be dealing with different types of correlation in the next session. There will be positive correlation, negative correlation, and likewise. So, a positive correlation between the increase in cigarette smoking and the increase in cancer may prove that one causes the other, because it is natural and we know that it is medically proved. But correlation does not always imply cause and effect relationship. Because when two variables are correlated, there need not be cause and effect relationship. It is just possible that a high degree of correlation between variables may be due to the same cause affecting each variable. For example, because previously I have mentioned that the reason for change in one may be due to the change in another. Like just like the change in price leads to change in demand, increase in usage of cigarette leads to increase in cancer. That in those cases there exists a relationship because change in one factor leads to a change in another factor. That is visible and it is scientifically proved. But there are some situations where there exists correlation, but the change in one variable is not due to change in another variable, but both variables change accordingly. So let us discuss with an example, then you will understand the concept. A high degree of correlation between yield per acre of rice and tea may be due to the fact that both are related to the amount of rainfall. So, here, none of the two variables is the cause of the other. There may be high degree of correlation between variables, but it may be difficult to pinpoint as to which is the effect. In some situations, it will be like that. For example, demand and supply, price and production, etc. It is a well-known principle of economics that is the price of the commodity increases if demand goes down, and to change in price is the cause and change in demand is the effect. But it is also possible that increase in demand of the commodity is due to the growth of population and other reasons. It may be like that. We can't always say that it may change in one is due to the change in another. It may be due to some other reasons also. So the point is that correlation doesn't mean that there exists a pure relationship between two variables. It may be due to some other factors, or it may be due to the situations or the factors working behind it. Sometimes two series or two variables may be having high degree of correlation which may result purely from chance also, by chance. For example, during the last decade, there has been a significant increase in the sale of newspaper and in the number of crimes. That does not mean that there exists any correlation between sale of newspaper and crime. I hope you understand the concept. If there is an increase in sale in newspaper, it leads to an increase in crimes. How can we say that increase in sale in newspaper leads to increase in crime? It may be due to the variables might have increased or move accordingly due to some other reasons, but we can't say that there exists a relationship between two variables. But we can try to establish a correlation between these two variables. But we can't say that there exists a relationship. We can say that during the period there was an increase in one variable and at the same time there was also an increase in another variable. Doesn't mean that these two variables are same or related. So regarding the crime and newspaper, such illogical correlation, that is no logical correlation, is referred to as nonsensical or spurious correlation. So these were the cases that comes under correlation, and we can also say that these are the situations of casual correlations, because there may be the relation between two variables may be due to some other factors. It may be by chance, it may be due to some other factors, it may be due to some hidden factors likewise. So these are the general concepts and views of the correlation. So before we go into that, let us discuss different kinds of correlation. First one, positive correlation and negative correlation, linear and non-linear correlation, simple, multiple and partial correlation. So let us discuss in detail each type of correlation. Positive correlation. Correlation can be either positive or negative. So let us discuss positive concept. When the values of two variables move in the same direction, correlation is said to be positive. That is, an increase in the value of one variable result into an increase in the value of the other variable also. Or if a decrease in the value of one variable results into a decrease in the value of the other variable also. So the correlation is said to be positive. If on the other hand the values of two variables move in the opposite direction, that is, an increase in the value of one variable result into a decrease in the value of the other variable, or the decrease in the value of one variable result into an increase in the value of the other variable. In such situation, the correlation is said to be negative. These are the concept of positive as well as negative correlation. Let us discuss the same situation with an example, then you will get a clear picture. Generally, price and supply are positively correlated because when the price increases, supply also increases. When the price comes down, supply also comes down. That is an example of positive correlation. But the correlation between price and demand is said to be a negative correlation or an inverse correlation, because when the price of the product falls, the demand of that product goes up. So there exists an inverse relationship between price and demand. That is an example of negative correlation. So I hope you understand the concept. Positive means when two variables go in the same direction. When one is increases, another also increases. When one decreases, another also decreases. Negative correlation is a situation where when one variable change in one variable is followed by an opposite change in the another variable. That is, when one increases, correspondingly the other variable decreases. That is the concept of positive correlation and negative correlation. So just go through the example this time stated here. I hope you understand the concept. So let us go to next one. Linear and non-linear correlation. A correlation may be linear or non-linear. That is, when the amount of change in one variable leads to a constant ratio of change in the other variable. In such situation, the correlation is said to be linear. For example, if the price goes up by 10%, it leads to a rise in supply by 15% each time. That is, each time. Whenever there is a change in price, the change in price will be always 10%, and corresponding change in supply will be 15%. So whenever there is a change, that change percentage will be the same. So if we plot the same in a graph, you will get a straight line because the change is always in constant ratio. So there will be a straight line if we are plotting the same in a graph. So then there is a linear relation between price and supply. When there is a linear relation or linear correlation, the point plotted on a graph will give a straight line. That is the concept of linear correlation. Next one, non-linear correlation. Correlation is said to be non-linear, or it can be otherwise known as curvilinear. Linear with a curve. Curvilinear when the amount of change in one variable is not in constant ratio to the change in the other variable. For example, if the price goes up by 10%, demand goes down by 15%. Okay, it's fine. In the next change, if the price increased by 15%, earlier it was 10%, now it is 15%, then the rate is different, which leads to 20% decrease in demand, then it will lead to a non-continuous. Yes, exactly. because at first we were plotting 10 and 15 in the graph. After that it has to be 10 and 15 again, then only you will get a linear. Since it is percentage varying, you will not get a straight line. If you plot these 4 points in a graph, you will not get a straight line. That is why it is known as non-linear or curvy linear. In that case you will be getting a curve. So that is the concept of curvy linear. Next one, simple, partial and multiple correlation. In the study of relation between variables, if there are only two variables, the correlation is said to be simple. For example, the correlation between price and demand is an example of simple correlation. In a partial correlation, we study the relationship of one variable with one of the other variables, assuming that the other variables remain constant. For example, let there be three variables: yield, rainfall and temperature. We are going to study whether there exists relationship between yield, rainfall and temperature. If it is a partial correlation, then the relationship between yield and rainfall will be studied, and assuming that temperature is constant. That is the concept of partial correlation. Partial correlation and multiple correlation is almost similar. In both concepts, the common factor is that there will be more than two variables. In multiple correlation will be also more than two variables. In partial correlation also there will be more than two variables. But the difference between partial and multiple is that in partial correlation there will be analysis of one variable with another variable, and other remaining variables will be remaining constant. Constant means no change. That is the concept of partial correlation. In multiple correlation, the degree of association between one variable on one side and all the other variables together on the other side. In simple word, it means studying a relation between each variables is known as multiple correlation. The same example, yield, the relation between yield with rainfall and temperature. If these three variables are studied accordingly, then this is known as multiple correlation. Next one, perfect and imperfect correlation. When both variables change at a constant rate, irrespective of the change in the direction, it is called perfect correlation. When the variables change at different ratio, then it is called imperfect correlation. The value of perfect correlation is 1 or -1, and the value of imperfect correlation is -1 and 1. Regarding the perfect and imperfect correlation, we will discuss the same with a diagram, then you will understand the concept of perfect, imperfect, positive as well as negative. And remember, here you can see that there is a numbers like 1, -1. The value of correlation or the scale of correlation always lie between +1, -1. The answer, if you are doing a mathematical problem, your answer will always be in between 1 and -1. The scale will be 1, 0, -1. So you will be getting positive as well as negative values. We will come to that part during the computation area. Right now, just go through all these theoretical aspects. We will discuss about the further cases in the next session.